Всем привет, дамы и господа, с вами Алекс Назаренко. Топ крупнейших, топ-30 крупнейших неудач в видеоиграх десятилетия. Ну и вы видите это. Watch. Это будет на первом месте, базарю.
I am prepared to bask in glory.
I don't think there's gonna be any basking today, buddy.
Losers. Мукбанк React. Мармеладные червячки.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 30 biggest failures of the video game industry from the past decade.
We trusted you. Let you live among us.
Among Us.
Number 30, Overwatch 2.
3, 2, 1. Attack opponents.
The decision to pull the plug on the original Overwatch was a choice many players still hang over Blizzard's head today. The least Blizzard could have done for Overwatch 2 was deliver a couple of new maps with a
Хотя бы, блять.
smooth launch. Alas, that was not the case. Overwatch 2 launched with players being stuck in a queue for hours upon hours on end. Those who managed to get in at launch quickly discovered how meaningless this sequel truly was.
Это, блять, тот же Overwatch. Я в него не играл, я смотрел летсплей по телеку на телеканале Game Show. Блять, ну...
Just about every map from the previous game was back, with nothing new outside of lighting. As soon as Blizzard cancelled their plans for story content, fans have begun turning their backs to a company they once adored.
Фанаты, блять, ждали сюжетного контента для первой части, я уверен.
Perseverance is my middle name.
Number 29, Balan Wonderworld. A new 3D platformer from the co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog. That sentence alone should perk anyone's ears up, but by the time Balan Wonderworld launched, the writing was on the wall. What could have been a fun and quirky game themed around musical theater turned into the video game form of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. Not only was the game a technical mess, it was overly simplified for a 3D platformer as it dedicated 6 separate buttons on the controller to one function and one function only: your costume ability. Yeah, if you were to look up mundane in the dictionary, Balan Wonderworld would definitely be the example
Зато сальтуху можно крутануть.
shown. Number 28, Battlefield 2042. If you ever needed some
Мне понравилось, как он подлетел.
If you ever needed some kind of a clue as to how bad Battlefield 2042 was, imagine this. The game launched with no leaderboard.
О, я, конечно, не играл в Battlefield, но, блядь, думаю, это вещь важная.
That should be enough to barely scratch the surface. The next hint would be to just watch all of the compilations of bugs and glitches that cropped up on YouTube at launch.
Но это же EA, у нее баги случаются и в FIFA. Ой, простите, в футбол.
Vehicle physics were completely tanked, online functionality was unstable, and the most trivial actions could possibly launch you to the top of the skybox. To be fair, Battlefield 2042 has supposedly gotten better at the time of this video, but considering the stellar quality behind previous games like Battlefield 1, this should have never been shipped.
Deadp47 рассказывал, что будет какой-то Battlefield, который исправит то, что было в Battlefield 2042. 42, братуха.
Number 27, Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Let me face the peril.
Блять, мне что-то подскажет, что и GTA здесь будет.
Forged.
А вот в 21-м выйдет как раз вот эта вот GTA та самая.
Let me face the peril.
Blizzard makes yet another appearance, and we aren't even a third of the way through this list. Warcraft 3 Reforged will forever be a humiliating stain on Blizzard's reputation for a variety of reasons. First,
А как же второй Overwatch? Как же второй Overwatch?
we were told that this remaster would feature new cutscenes that would further enhance the story. Well, that was a bold-faced
Вау, в Warcraft'е были катсцены?
lie, as the cutscenes remained the exact same way as the original Warcraft 3. Then there was the EULA agreement that forced users to forfeit all creative ideas and concepts should they use Warcraft 3 to mod in additional game modes. Combine all of that with even more missing features that were advertised initially, and you have the biggest embarrassment in Blizzard's history so far.
It shall be done. For my people. For honor. What is it? Research complete.
Number 26.
Почему они ёбу не открывают?
The Lord of the Rings Golem, aka Lord of Ring Golem.
Ты вообще, блядь, знал у нас в СНГ, что выходит игра про Голума, сука? Ладно, Индиана Джонс. Ты вообще не хайпанул.
The great eye sees us.
Lord of Ring Golem will be forever remembered.
Я еще знаю, что вот многих разочаровало в достойных упоминаниях в топе разочарований от киноогня. Там был вот этот вот анимешка по «Властелину колец».
As one of the worst games ever seen in the 2020s. It was bad enough that no one had any confidence in the game being remotely decent in the weeks leading up to launch. The thing is that no one expected it to be so bad that a setting for hair physics was removed from the game completely for making the game unstable.
Вот настолько вам, блядь, было похуй.
No one expected it to be awful enough that you could repeat numerous bugs without fail. No one expected it to be so beyond broken that you could travel outside of the levels. And with a terrible
Может, блядь, физику не стоило отключать? Может быть, это повлияло на то, что у вас, сука, игра, блядь, сломана?
To be so beyond broken that you could travel outside of the levels. And with a terrible public apology that was allegedly written by AI, Lord of Ring Golem caused way more migraines than it should have.
Through the mountains? And orcs don't guard it?
No, not orcs. Spiders cleft. That's the name. That's where we found the tunnel.
Number 25. Unity's new fees.
Какая классная игра, наверное. Чё это, блядь?
Unity was once regarded as one of the cheapest game engines to obtain and one of
Вы в детстве играли, наверное, в дохуя игр на этом движке. На телефоне.
the easiest to
Я с 21 года не играю. Но, возможно, вы сейчас играете на телефоне в игру, которая тоже сделана на Unity.
use. It opened the door to game development for hundreds of thousands of would-be developers, allowing them to
О, Филборд, помню.
finally fulfill their dreams and put out their first games. Well, in September 2023, Unity decided it wanted more money from small-time devs and announced they would be implementing a new policy that would grant Unity additional royalties from indie devs, royalties based on the number of times a game was downloaded. Everyone
Это игровые провалы, блядь.
hated that.
Во всей индустрии.
Several indie developers, including some that are prominent in the space, would announce delays or even cancellations of their games as many scrambled to find a new game engine to work with.
Space!
Unity would not cancel the policy until September 2024, whole year after the backlash began. Number 24. Godfall.
Macros sold us a vision he never believed in.
Ever since Borderlands 2 launched in 2012, Gearbox has continuously failed in reaching that same level of success. Even after the bomb that was Battleborn, maybe a new IP could renew the faith from old fans. Not with Godfall. In the weeks leading up to its launch, Gearbox placed a bizarre emphasis on how good the endgame content is. Okay, but what about the game itself? Well, it was not good the endgame content is. Okay, but what about the game itself? Bizarre
Подождите.
emphasis on how good the endgame content is. Okay, but what about the game itself?
Значит, наебали.
Well, it was nothing special. Godfall was a melee-centric Borderlands, but with a world coated in
Ну почему? Это не Borderlands, тут другая анимация, блядь.
lens flares and absurd sheen instead of scrap and flesh, and a better combat system, albeit for a few short minutes. So, if the main game loop
Ну, хотя бы поэтому фильм не стали снимать.
is boring, what reason is there to stick around long enough for a
Не подумайте, я смотрел Borderlands, а именно обзор на Borderlands сам, не ебя, что это за игра.
supposedly fun endgame? That's like advertising a moldy dinner while promising an exquisite dessert.
Macros thinks the war is over,
Муфаса.
but our fight has just
Что, смотрели Муфасу? Как вам? Есть тут такие?
begun.
Number 23. New Tales from the Borderlands.
You should be seeing multiple holograms of yourself, sir.
Вспомнишь говно, вот и оно. Я не про игры Borderlands, я про фильм Borderlands.
Oh yeah!
Ну типа там Borderlands, тут Borderlands. 2K. Они, кстати, делают новую FIFA. Причем реально это будет называться FIFA, а не как у EA Sports и eFootball, потому что лицензия с EA закончилась.
So, if Godfall is the bad dinner with a great dessert, then what does that make new Tales from the Borderlands?
Узнаю анимацию Borderlands.
Imagine being handed the soggiest bag of fast food by a person with the brightest smile on their face. Once again, Gearbox tanks its reputation further by delivering a narrative-driven game with a poorly written story filled with unlikable and annoying characters. It was even more infuriating to witness as Gearbox heavily banked on the nostalgia people have for the original Tales from the Borderlands, which was developed by Telltale Games. At some point, maybe we need to start discussing whether Borderlands 2, which was developed by
Telltale. У них название есть Tale. История, блядь. То есть они умели делать истории.
Telltale Games. At some point, maybe we need to start discussing whether Borderlands 2 was just a flash in the pan for the franchise.
Susan, how'd they hang in?
Perky as ever, Reese. And you? Eyes and limbs all accounted for?
Number 22, Skull and Bones.
Ну, про этот провал я что-то слышал.
When you're describing your upcoming game as being the first quadruple-A game, that's a red flag.
Я смотрел видео от Watchwatch, типа, блядь, худшие игры года.
If your game is anything like Skull and Bones. After festering within Ubisoft for over a decade, we finally got to see if Sea of Thieves was about to have a competitor next door. That idea was extinguished within minutes after launch. Launching in February 2024, Skull and Bones turned out to be nothing more than an online open-world game with naval combat nowhere near as exciting or complex as Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. In October 2024, insiders
Мы хотим делать сложность, как в нашей игре. Мы же сделали Ассасина.
Leaked information about Ubisoft's financials, revealing that Skull and Bones had a budget between $650 million and $850 million.
Кстати, следующая реакция на Watchwatch это будет топ-30 самых дорогих видеоигр.
Those same insiders revealed that the game has been a major reason as to why Ubisoft's stock and revenue went on a rapid decline throughout 2024.
На круассаны они себе не заработали. Круассаны.
Number 21.
Хотя нет, есть же люди, которые купили это и потом пожалели о том, что купили.
The Day Before.
Не захотели возвращать деньги. Типа, это настолько хуйня, что я даже деньги возвращать не буду. Хотя это странно звучит. Короче, допустим, купить игру можно, а дать деньги нельзя.
Greetings, buddy. I see you finally recovered. Let me introduce myself.
It's very easy to label a bad game as a scam, but everything surrounding The Day Before looks, smells, and tastes like a scam. The marketing was shady from the start, with possibly plagiarized trailers, frequent delays, and a strangely hyperactive amount.
О, бля, на телеканале, блядь, на канале Watchwatch России там вышел недавно видос про типа трейлеры, которые нас наебывают.
Of attention the game was getting for what was essentially an online survival zombie game. It was even more
Блять, и это 23-й.
Bizarre when accusations of unpaid labor and asset
И это 23-й.
flipping began to crop up. Once The Day Before launched, it was all over. It launched in a horribly unstable state and became the laughingstock of the internet. Developer a horribly unstable state and became the laughingstock of the internet. Developer
Блять, ну графон, конечно, вообще не актуальный.
Fantastic, no, that is not a spelling error, has tried getting a second and third game off the ground
О, у нас пошел папка.
to no avail at the time of this video.
Don't worry. Everyone.
Не волнуйся. Когда-нибудь мы умрем, и наши души попадут в другую игру.
One in Woodbury already knows we have a newcomer.
Number 20, Mortal Kombat 11 and Mortal Kombat 1.
Пиздец. А ведь все ждали первый Mortal Kombat.
Take what you
Первый новый Mortal Kombat.
want within reason. You'll find
А как 11-я часть умудрилась провалиться?
the time spent
Какие неудачи?
is well rewarded.
For a game that is graphically intense, one might be quick to say that Mortal Kombat should maybe not release on a
Блять.
Nintendo
Это уровень мобилки нахуй.
console. After all, Nintendo's consoles aren't really meant to be powerhouses like the PS5 or Xbox Series X. And yet,
Блять, это чё нахуй? На PlayStation... О, господи.
Warner Brothers had to make it
Я, блядь, на телефоне такие игры могу поиграть.
so. Both MK11 and MK1
Это графика телефонов, нахуй. Mortal Kombat Mobile, сука.
were the worst ports we had ever seen on a
Это даже выглядит как игра на телефон.
Switch with their creepy character models and severely compromised visuals. And can you believe Warner Brothers wanted $50 for these abysmal ports? Supposedly,
Братаны, блядь.
they've gotten a little better over time, but still, why would anyone settle for this?
What is the point of your new clan? To fill the role the Lin Kuei abandoned.
Number 19, Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Definitive Edition.
I'm hungry!
Oh, man.
To number large. Number 6.
Hey, man.
Extra deep.
Man,
О, Миссайд. Вы играли в Миссайд CGM?
I live on bread alone, I know.
Поможешь мне приготовить куриный супчик для моего босса Биг Смоука? И сделай Биг Смоуку соус. С ним еда ароматнее.
No, I tried that shit.
Speaking of piss poor work,
Бля, там, я думал, он сейчас запоет I tried so hard and nothing up. At the end, it doesn't mean the matter.
the GTA PS2 trilogy was done dirty in 2021.
Обожаю эту анимацию.
With the original games being delisted from all digital storefronts, Rockstar Games was ready to put out this bundle that put some spit and polish on GTA 3, San Andreas, and Vice City. The
Бэткомедиан даже, новая реакция на канале, кстати, шутил про то, что какая-то ошибочная игра, типа эту игру можно назвать ошибкой, блядь, просто ошибкой.
only problem is there was a ton of spit and no polish. All three games were marred with visual glitches that occurred for weather effects, textures, signage, and even some of the character models. Turns out developer Grove Street Games had used AI to upscale textures only for it to screw up most of them. Rockstar would take another 3 years to go in and fix the game themselves.
Планы поменяли, следующая реакция будет русский Watch Mod же. Там вышел топ самых уморительных клипов 90-х.
Releasing a patch in 2024. Grove Street Games had its name completely scrubbed from the credits by Rockstar, which Grove Street CEO was not super thrilled over.
Another time, Ricardo.
Ricardo, let's go.
Let's get out of here.
Number 18, Fallout 76.
Наслушай, я о провале этой игры.
Today, Fallout 76 enjoys a healthy player base that genuinely loves the way the game has turned out over the last several years. Time travel to 2018 though, and it was a completely different story. Fallout 76 launched with an endless sea of problems. Quests bugging out to the point of being unbeatable, connection issues causing cheap deaths, problems rendering objects as the player traveled. It was all a disaster. People were furious, thus giving the...
Я помню, Epic Store раздавал Fallout, я посмотрел и видел, что это там написано стратегия, я такой, не нахуй. А потом я узнал с поп-культа, что это, блядь, нихуя не стратегия.
Bethesda a more negative reputation than it used to have. At least they managed to turn F76 around today.
Number
Я загружу эту реакцию, ну типа реакцию на видос с клипами впервые.
17, the PlayStation Classic.
Отмечу, что у GameLoft, Каргас сделал про них видос, можете посмотреть в полисте реакции на Каргас. У них была прикольная тема с классическими игрушками, которые можно было поиграть на смартфоне. Там были игрушки с сенсом, там были игрушки с кнопочных телефонов.
Nintendo's success from the NES and SNES Classic prompted Sony to do the same. Surely, players would want a small digital library of classic PS1 titles. Well, as it turns out, if you implement a bunch of aspects players hate, the answer is a resounding no.
Гоночки! Вы же ждали гоночки?
The mediocre game lineup was an easy criticism pre-launch, but the poor user interface, subpar image and emulation quality, and an insane $100 price tag made the game lineup the least of our worries. Word spread fast, and Sony has gone through several price cuts to get people to buy them. Number 16, Crackdown 3. Number 16, Crackdown 3. Our hearts go out to the developers of Crackdown 3. The latest entry of the hectic third-person shooter series went through 4 delays before finally releasing in February 2019. And they were all products of trying and failing to keep the hefty promises the game was supposed to deliver on. Fully destructible environments through the Xbox One's highly touted cloud processing were harder to implement than they had originally thought. The delays, crowded release schedule, and mediocre game design made Crackdown 3 sell pretty poorly. It didn't actually do much different from the original Crackdown, which was released in 2007. It's such a shame this was a failure, given the importance riding on this title.
The future is secure as long as the agency threat dies.
Number 15. Metal Gear Survive.
Pick me boy.
The first Metal Gear game without Hideo Kojima was always going to be met with serious scrutiny. Unfortunately for us, Konami dropped the ball pretty hard. Gone was the focus on stealth gameplay the series was known for. Instead, Survive was an action survival game set in an alternate universe that tasked players with combating zombie-like creatures.
Симулятор тыкающей палки. Знаете, Baldur's Gate называют симулятором ебли с медведем. Вот эту Metal Gear Solid можно назвать симулятор тыканья палкой, копьем.
If that doesn't convince you the tacked-on Metal Gear name was just a cash grab, the inclusion of microtransactions should. The story and characters, which by the way had nothing to do with the iconic characters players know, were also met with fair criticism. Nevertheless, it underperformed. And it's a rather sour characters, which by the way had less, it underperformed. And it's a rather sour note as the so far last installment of such a cherished series. Number 14, the Wii U.
An exclusive library
Wii U? Я даже не знаю, что сказать.
Of games means unique spins on that classic Nintendo fun.
While the Wii U had
library of games means unique spins on that classic Nintendo.
Про этих челиков у Peanut Butter Gamer есть этот, ёпта. Рекламный выпуск. Есть рекламный выпуск. Этот, про вот этих челиков. Я его посмотрел на днях. И еще хочу пересмотреть. Чтобы вы понимали, я посмотрел все рекламные выпуски, почти все рекламные выпуски Peanut Butter Gamer. Остался только стрим с просмотром реклам видеоигр. И, блядь, ну... Я, короче, блядь, буду пересматривать реакцию, блядь. Пересматривать видос Peanut Butter Gamer про вот этих челиков.
Fun.
While the Wii U had some great games, it was almost set up to fail from the very beginning. Revealed at E3 2011, Nintendo focused so heavily on the new
Светлая память E3. Знаю, все любили эту штуку.
Controller that many didn't realize it was an entirely new console. And naming it after the popular Wii to sound like an add-on didn't really help. The console would struggle through
Это чё, блядь, крестики-нолики? Две Миланы в домике.
Mediocre third-party ports and a trickling of great first-party fare for 5 years. With nothing really new to draw players in, the Wii U was a colossal financial failure for Nintendo. At least this failure has a happy ending. It led to the inventive and highly successful Switch.
Это же Breath of the Wild, где вместо диалогов у нас молчание. Я смотрел прохождение на телеканале Game Show. Гидеон проходил.
Number 13. The PlayStation Vita.
Я сам вспоминаю, как Чак Ревью говорил. Жаль для меня, что PS Vita оказался провальным куском дерьма. Я знаю, там есть камера на, блядь, 5 мегапикселей Игры, блядь, платные, нахуй. Игр, блядь, мало, которые установлены.
Sony's handheld consoles were always going to be second fiddle to Nintendo's lineup, but things didn't go well for the Vita at all. From the moment the system launched, sales were very slow and never had the chance to take off. This was attributed to the launched. Sales were very slow and never had the chance to take off. This was attributed to the fact that there weren't that many must-own exclusives on the system, and its multimedia features were being bested by smartphones at the time. Eventually, game development for the Vita ended mid-decade, with most of its exclusives being ported over to the PS4, and Sony quietly discontinuing the Vita in March 2019. Sadly, unlike the Wii U, there's no successor to the PS Vita in sight. Number 12. Mighty Number 9.
Brand! I'm warning you, Beck! Stay away!
When it comes to Kickstarter campaigns, for every incredible Shovel Knight, there are at least 3 like this. Mighty Number 9 was meant to be a spiritual successor to Mega Man, and even came from the Blue Bomber's artistic creator, Kaiji Inafune. Given the popularity of the Capcom franchise, Mighty Number 9 blew through all of its financial milestones incredibly quickly. After many delays, it was met with tremendous backlash from both players and critics. Underwhelming graphics, a bland story, and poor technical performance were all favorites to pick apart. Even those who backed the project reported receiving broken download codes and mismatched rewards. An overall disaster of a project, it didn't help that it received one of the worst launch trailers of all time.
And make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night.
Number 11, No Man's Sky launch. No Man's Sky launch. When promoting a game, it's best to keep your promises in check. Hello Games learned this the hard way when they launched No Man's Sky in 2016. Players were ecstatic to explore a procedurally generated galaxy with their friends, discovering new planets and species. A victim of overhype and overselling, the title released without many of the promised functions. Multiplayer components and gameplay elements, such as those in terms of crafting.
Очередное совпадение. Я король совпадений, нахуй. У меня мой бро спрашивал. Блять, вот почему... Ёпта это. На мобилках так мало хороших типа... Не, как-то было. Типа... Я перепутал с другим. Почему так мало, блядь, этих хороших игр с мультиплеером? Почему нет таких много игр с мультиплеером на мобилке?
Resources and different planetary features were absent from the game.
Я перепутал с другой игрой, которая была в каком-то топе, получается, WatchMojo. Или чё? Игра, в которой не было мультиплеера.
This obviously sparked outrage from players sold on a certain experience. This failure to live up to expectations is something Hello Games has had to work very hard to fix with updates to the game. And the game is actually pretty good now.
When the game is out, one of you might one day come across this planet.
Number 10, Telltale Games.
Beans. Homemade. Might be more where this came from.
Rest in peace. While they were around since 2005, Telltale Games earned fame by creating point-and-click
Ну, рассказали Rest in Peace, я сразу.
games based on popular IPs. Their most successful being 2012's The Walking Dead, where tough choices made for engaging storytelling.
Lee protected other people too. But he couldn't save everyone.
But some of the most expensive costing franchises like Batman and Game of Thrones, combined with But some of the most expensive costing franchises like Batman and Game of Thrones, combined with diminishing sales, meant they had to shut their doors in 2018. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is how they went about it. With little notice, Telltale laid off 250 employees with no severance pay. What remains of the studio was purchased by LCG Entertainment in 2019, but this was an undeniably awful handling of an already bad situation.
New life begins.
Iron from ice.
Iron from ice.
Number 9. Anthem.
The cockpit is secure. This job is hard enough without looking over our shoulders the whole time.
I'm not taking the blame for this.
BioWare's online sci-fi shooter would probably still make the list for its repetitive grind, generic story, and its failure to meet EA's selling
Мама, я хочу Дарта Вейдера. У нас есть Дарт Вейдер. Дарт Вейдер дома.
expectations. But it's the behind-the-scenes story that makes things so much worse.
You have no idea what the Heart of Rage can do to a person. I'll be fine. Really? You ever fought anything out there?
Shortly after the game's release, Kotaku's Jason Schreier interviewed a group of anonymous BioWare employees, and the picture they painted was not pretty.
Ну да, блять, хуёво.
Poor management, crunch, high stress, indecision about what the game should actually be, and a forced usage of EA's crunch, high stress,
Они даже не знали, какая должна быть игра, блять. То есть они...
Indecision about what the game should actually be, and poor management, crunch, high stress, indecision about what the game should actually be, and a forced usage of EA's Frostbite game engine all resulted in a half-baked title. Anthem is a tedious, unfun mess that doesn't live up to BioWare standards.
Then I'll show you. No, that's not how we conduct business.
Number 8. Battleborn.
Friggin' casuals!
У нас еще один Overwatch.
Gearbox's hero shooter is actually an okay game. It had enough variety in each character's gameplay mechanics to keep players interested. Its failure, however, can mostly be attributed to its launch window. It was released in May of 2016, mere weeks before the much more highly anticipated Overwatch from Blizzard.
My sentence was destroyed.
Though they were similar, Overwatch was clearly the better game and had the larger marketing budget. Battleborn sold decently at launch, but player count dropped immensely after Overwatch released, with the PC count dropping from 12,000 to 1,000 just 2 months later.
The game would eventually go free to play in 2017, but was shut down in January 2021. So long, Battleborn.
Enough nonsense!
Catch this!
Number 7. Radical Heights.
And this is what I have to show for it? I'm ready to be more than this.
With the boom in popularity of Battle Royale games like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and Fortnite, we've seen many studios follow the trend to varying degrees of success. At the very bottom of that list sits Radical Heights.
That's gonna leave a mark.
Developer Boss Key Productions likely thought this title would help them recuperate losses from their first game, the FPS Lawbreakers. However, Radical Heights, classified as being in extreme early access, was criticized for using unpolished assets and recycling gameplay from much more successful counterparts. It was obviously a slapdash combination of things Boss Key thought would bring players in. Instead, it brought financial ruin to the studio as it closed shortly after. Cliff Bleszinski, the studio's founder and creator of Gears of War, even retired after Boss Key's closure.
Bummer, dude! You're definitely not leaving empty-handed. Here's what you've won.
Number 6. Mass Effect Andromeda.
I didn't know you were biotic.
Don't worry, it's not contagious.
Things started going downhill at BioWare before Anthem. The fourth, and so far final entry in the Mass Effect series, was built by the company's Montreal team. Montreal represent... Just like with Anthem though, Kotaku's Jason Schreier reported mismanagement issues. God damn it, Montreal. Notably, the team was forced to use the Frostbite engine, which required them to build everything from the ground up. Many team members, especially those in leadership positions, would leave BioWare during the difficult production. Upon release, facial animations were a constant source of jokes from players.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
And a bevy of technical bugs and glitches.
My face is tired from dealing with everything.
And a bevy of technical bugs and glitches made it frustrating to play. It was so bad that EA shut down BioWare Montreal as a result of the failure.
Did the rest of the team make it?
Number 5. Babylon's Fall.
Wow, it looked like the doll was connected to him by some kind of shining thread.
И пока Вавилон рушится, мы приближаемся к первому месту, на котором, очевидно, будет Конкорд.
Square Enix's third attempt to break into the live service market required the help of Platinum Games, famed studio behind Bayonetta, Vanquish, and Mad World. However, neither studio seemed to be prepared for this endeavor, let alone capable of pulling it off. Babylon's Fall wound up being a game filled with corridors, unremarkable environments, and poorly explained mechanics. The game did not even last a year before it was shut down in February 2023, and it's part of the reason why some have become more skeptical of Platinum Games recently.
Don't you know where you are, Lycus? This is no place for a child.
Number 4. Redfall.
The others want you dead.
Про Redfall говорил Каргас.
But I want you here, alive.
During the previews and marketing campaign, Redfall seemed like it could be a sleeper hit for Xbox. There weren't a ton of people excited for it, but Arcane Studios had prestige thanks to its efforts on the Dishonored games. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Redfall became one of the Xbox's biggest blunders in the brand's history. Not only did we get a dull open world, we got a world where the AI was insipidly stupid and wouldn't properly detect or react to the player. The fact
Пиздец, вы на искусственный интеллект забили? Ну вы, блядь, конечно, старики.
Players were required to create Bethesda accounts and have an online connection was equally aggravating. In the end, Arcane lost its branch in Austin, Texas, all future plans for Redfall were cancelled, and the game was preserved by allowing it to function offline.
Я забыл, что хотел.
Where the AI was insipidly stupid. Not only have fallen, we have.
Да. Ну да, вот в этом видосе. Сейчас вернусь. А нахуй я это говорю вообще?
Fallen. Redfall became one of the Xbox's biggest blunders in the brand's history. Not only did we get a dull open world, we got a world where the AI was insipidly stupid and wouldn't properly detect
Это вообще пиздос для игры.
Or react.
Сейчас надо полагаться на искусственный интеллект.
To the player. The fact players were required to create Bethesda accounts and have an online connection
Не во всем, конечно, да нужно же.
Was equally aggravating. In the end, Arcane lost its branch in Austin, Texas, all future plans for Redfall were cancelled, and the game was preserved by allowing it to function offline.
Эти вообще забили хуй на искусственный интеллект.
Number 3. Marvel's Avengers.
Sounds...
Я смотрел про этот... Я смотрел обзор на эту игру от телеканала Е.
Pretty big for an accident.
Это тот самый Е, который... Раньше был гейм-шоу.
No accidents.
Там какая-то девочка, главная героиня, подросток.
Sure. Tony, check it out.
Before Babylon's Fall came Marvel's Avengers. This should have been an easy win for Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, but when you have a studio built for single-player games to design an online multiplayer title, things are gonna get ugly. What we got was a game where mash...
Я сразу вспоминаю, как впихивали в Epic Story этот... тоже мультиплеер с персонажами Marvel.
One button to attack solves almost all of your problems, and the Avengers get to spend much of the game opening boxes for gear. Marvel's Avengers was
вот это главная героиня.
Delisted from digital storefronts as of 2023. Square Enix suffered a massive loss of more than $60 million, leading them to sell Crystal Dynamics to Embracer Group along with the Tomb Raider IP.
Tomb Raider, пиздатая игра.
What's happening here?
Epic Store раздавал, я все 3 забрал.
The city's collapsing.
Number 2, Suicide Squad.
Все, блядь, понятно, кто на первом.
Kill the Justice League.
Computer, activate the threat assessment matrix.
What? You tough guys never seen a bat computer?
Yet another sad attempt at a live service, and once again, a publisher had its own single-player game studio make a multiplayer online service title. No one other than Warner Brothers wanted an online shooter from Rocksteady. No one was asking for a Suicide Squad spin-off from the folks known for the Batman Arkham games. And yet, we somehow got one that was packed with a messy UI, a bland story, and a poor ending that only serves as an excuse for the...
Там вышки надо зачищать, насколько я знаю. Бля, делали ли я реакцию на обзор Каргаса? Я делал, но он вышел на канале, который... На моем канале удаленном. Так.
For the live service element's inclusion. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League sold so abysmally that Warner Brothers blamed the game as the reason why they suddenly lost $200 million. Despite this, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav insists that WB Games will continue investing into live service games.
If you're seeing this, Robin, it means I've been compromised. I wanted to say goodbye, Tim.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe.
Ой, блядь, интересно, кто же у нас будет первым? О, как все интересно. О, это же очевидно не Конкорд. О, блядь, где этот плейлист, нахуй? Ага. Я потерял тот плейлист.
Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Concord.
Sorry. Oh, come on. We crushed that last job. Were they even watching?
Sony may as well have told Warner Brothers to hold their beer because Concord is the most prolific video game failure we've seen since E.T. on Atari. Sony burned $400 million in almost an instant when it saw Concord was floundering in development. Not only did they spend $200 million to acquire Firewalk Studios, they injected...
Мы все прекрасно знаем, что за пиздец произошел с этой игрой. Ой, нашел. Suicide Squad. Да, это на старом канале было. Нету реакции на обзор Suicide Squad.
Injected $200 million just for them to finish a standard PvP hero shooter. Players were so uninjected $200 million just for them to finish a standard...
Стандартный. Блять, пиздец, они даже не смогли создать нестандартный шутер.
PvP hero shooter. Players were so uninterested that Sony pulled the game from sale.
Им нужен Кодзима, потому что Кодзима гений.
And shut down the servers less than 2 weeks after launch. Firewalk Studios was shut...
Недели.
...from sale and shut down the...
Минимум через 2 недели, сука.
...servers less than 2 weeks after launch. Firewalk Studios was shuttered in October 2024. And to think that Sony internally championed this game as the next Star Wars.
Nothing wrong with some friendly competition.
Все ржали над вашим провалом, блять. Ставьте лайки, подписывайтесь на канал, ждите такого, хочет нам выпускать новые видео, пишите комментарии, ставьте на телегу. С вами был Алекс Назаренко. Всем спасибо за просмотр, всем пока.